I posted the latter part of this last week. My mom heard about it and asked me to email it to her. We later talked, and she said that I should warn her so she could have her Kleenex ready. That got me to thinking. As the parents of 4 kids and the grandparents of 7, there have been many times over the years that Betty and I have had to sacrifice for Christmas' sake. But I never took the time to remember, appreciate, or thank my parents for their sacrifices. I remember hearing of a Christmas once where Dad got a sweater, Mom a new piece of cookware, and their little boy got a wonderful Tonka truck set. Christmas at the Martin household was a wonderful time. We were rich in the things that really matter, if not by what the world set such great store by. One Christmas, my grandparents in Nashville took orders and sold the pecans that grew in our yard. Christmas and the trip home to Nashville that year was financed by those beautiful pecan trees at 2366 Ruby Drive. The Lord provides. Now, how you take 3 kids, several $100s worth of bagged pecans, luggage, and Christmas presents to Tennessee in an old Ford station wagon, I haven't a clue. Then there was the Christmas in the early 60s when Dad and a close friend searched all over Augusta to find batteries. This was in the days before all-night convenience stores and Walmart. He finally found a drugstore on the hill that was open. With Santa's helpers, disappointment is not an option. Christmas morning at the Martin house would start about 2 o'clock when my sisters and I started trying to make enough noise to wake Mom and Dad up. Finally, Dad would give in and go check to see if Santa had been there yet. Then he made the pronouncement that indeed Mr. Claus had stopped by. We would race into the living room where the tree lights were gleaming as we dashed in. The smell of coffee filled the air. I suppose putting a pot of coffee on first was his payoff for getting up so early. Presents would be piled up and the stockings filled with oranges, apples, nuts, candy canes, and surprises. Then they laid on the couch. An empty plate of cookie crumbs and a milky glass sat on an end table. But as I look back now, I can see clearly the loving, happy smiles on Mom and Dad's faces. Oh, if only I'd realized how much then I would long to see both of those happy smiles together again. So as I sit here with tears streaming down my cheeks, let me say this. Thank you, Mom, for the loving home that you and Dad gave us. Thank you for the sacrifices that you made with such an attitude that we never even knew that they were sacrifices. Thank you for the example that you gave us on how a family should be. I love you, and I love and miss Dad. Christmas. My, how things have changed over the years. Stores scrambled and burst into Christmas splendor after Thanksgiving, almost magically. Storefront windows, remember when stores had large inviting display windows and didn't look like fortresses, were transformed into winter wonderlands with trains that circled scenes that mirrored what children saw in their heads. Figures that moved and inspired fantasies as they frolicked in the artificial snow. Giant toy soldiers in impressive uniforms that stood guard. Dolls and dollhouses, toy kitchens. Cowboy suits with pistols and rifles. Gasp! Colored lights casting their beams to be reflected in cascades of bright tinsel. Large manger scenes with realistic-looking animals and adoring shepherds and wise men, looking on in awe at a small figure in a straw-filled feeding trough surrounded by his mother and father. Santa holding court over a seemingly endless line of eager small children while parents looked on with slight smiles of their own, thinking of their Christmas memories. Children who were mentally balancing the naughties and nices committed so far and wondering if it was time enough to correct the balance. Children who were deciding how far they could go with their Christmas list. Was there an imaginary line that might be crossed into greed before shifting one into the naughty side of the balance? Christmas at home was large multicolored bulbs shining brightly as stars over a landscape of carefully wrapped presents. The smell of baking wafting through the house, blending delicately with the scent of pine coming off the tree. The tree. No matter that it wasn't perfectly shaped, it didn't stretch to the ceiling. It was decorated with fragile, precious ornaments that called forth visions of Christmases past. Handmade ornaments that were now chipped or faded still evoked joy that they had originally caused when they were brought home from school and handed to your parents with pride. Hard sugar candy in bowls that had been handed down from family and friends from long ago, and sometimes the candy was so hard you wondered if it had been handed down from earlier generations also. Cookies, cakes, homemade candy to please the palate and wire the children with sugar. The Sears Roebuck catalog was our magic transport to the North Pole. Oh, to be able to lie on my bed again beneath the covers and to be carried away like magic into the world of my imagination. Forts with cowboys and Indians, toy soldiers to fight the forces of evil with, trains to take you wherever you wanted to go. Erector sets to create great structures that adults couldn't even begin to see in their mind's eye. Daisy BB guns, a matched set of Mattel pistols with greeny stickum caps with real leather holsters. Everyone smiling and saying Merry Christmas. People sharing the joy of the season, and not the often mean-spirited, self-centered rudeness that has crept into our world today. The examples set those many years ago are so distant from the pushing, shoving, and fighting that goes on today. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you and those that you hold dear. Remember that there is a reason for this season, and that reason is love, the love of God.